Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was beginning to set over Washington, D.C., casting a golden glow on the still bustling sidewalks of the capital. On the corner of a quiet street, an elegant woman in a navy suit held the hand of a small, blonde-haired boy with light eyes. He couldn't see the passers-by or the twilight lights, he was blind from birth. Beside him, a golden-coated guide dog walked calmly, focused on its mission. "Easy, Max, we're crossing," the woman murmured, squeezing her son Noah's hand. The dog stopped, observed the street, then gently guided the child onto the pedestrian crossing. They were returning from a medical appointment. Noah was laughing softly, proud to have made the journey almost alone. For him, this dog, named Shadow, was not just a guide, he was his eyes, his friend, his courage. But on that day, a simple moment of tranquility would turn into a nightmare. As they passed by a park, two police officers approached. One of them, tall, with a tight jaw, frowned when he saw the animal. "Madam, dogs are not allowed here. You must leave the premises immediately," he said sharply. "This is not an ordinary dog, officer, it is a guide dog for my son," she replied calmly. But the man wasn't listening. His younger colleague added, "We've received complaints. You must prove that this animal is a service dog. Otherwise, it will be confiscated." The word confiscated sounded like a threat. Noah, disturbed by the loud voices, began to tremble, clutching Shadow to him. "Mom, are they going to take Shadow from me?" The woman's heart sank. She took a deep breath, trying to contain the rising anger. These two men, invested with a power they barely understood, were humiliating an innocent child. "Officers, I advise you to stand back. You are violating several federal disability laws," she said firmly. But the policeman sneered. "The laws? You think we care about them? Give me the dog's papers, or it's going to the pound." Passers-by began to stop, filming the scene with their phones. Noah was now crying, clutching his dog's leash. The woman sighed, then slowly took out her wallet. She pulled out a simple, gold card, heavy with meaning. She calmly handed it to the officer. The man took it, looked distractedly, then his face lost all color. The map read, "United States District Court, Federal Judge Laura Spencer." Silence fell instantly. The crowd held its breath. The policeman, who a few seconds earlier thought he was above it all, felt his legs weaken. Laura gently placed her hand on her son's shoulder and said in an icy voice, "You just threatened a disabled child's guide dog, and insulted a federal judge. Believe me, you will answer for your actions." Thunder rumbled in the distance, like an echo of justice. Because that night, it wouldn't be a simple complaint, but a lesson in law and humanity that Judge Spencer was going to give to the whole world. That same evening, the district police station was plunged into unusual commotion. Murmurs ran through the corridors, nervous glances were exchanged between officers. No one was unaware of what had happened in the park that afternoon. Nobody wanted to be in the shoes of the two officers involved. Laura Spencer, straight and impassive, walked through the door of the police station with her son Noah asleep in her arms and Shadow, the guide dog, walking silently beside her. Her face betrayed no emotion, but her eyes, cold as the justice she embodied, spoke for themselves. Each step she took seemed to weigh on the ground like a sentence to come. "Madam, you cannot enter here with a dog," a young receptionist tried awkwardly. Laura slowly turned her head towards him. "Do you want to be the third person to violate federal law today?" The policeman swallowed hard. No, madam." "Welcome." She entered the interrogation room where the two people responsible for the incident were waiting for her, Officer Daniels, the one who had threatened to confiscate the dog, and his partner, Sergeant Miller. Both stood up when they saw her, visibly uncomfortable. "Judge Spencer, it's a misunderstanding," Daniels began, his voice hesitant. Laura calmly placed her son on a chair, then sat down opposite them. "A misunderstanding?" You yelled at a blind child, tried to remove his service dog, and ignored the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm listening, officer. What part of compassion are you missing? Silence fell. Daniels searched for his words. We thought that it was an unauthorized animal. It wasn't wearing an official vest. Laura raised an eyebrow. You thought you didn't check anything. You acted on instinct, on arrogance. And all the while, a child was crying in the street. Sergeant Miller spoke, visibly more sincere. Madam, I acknowledge that we acted wrongly. I failed to stop my colleague in time. I take full responsibility for that. Laura stared at him for a few seconds before slowly nodding her head. It's a start. But it's not enough. Do you know what it's like for a blind child to hear that their only point of reference in the world is going to be taken away? She placed a gentle hand on Noah's head, who was sleeping peacefully. This dog allows him to go to school, to cross the street, to feel free. And today, you almost shattered that trust. At that moment, the police chief, a robust man named Captain Howard, entered the room. Judge Spencer, I apologize on behalf of the department. An internal investigation will be opened. Laura stood up, looking the three men straight in the eyes. Captain Howard, this isn't just a matter of apologies. It's a matter of education, respect, and justice. I intend to make sure that every officer in this city understands the laws they are supposed to uphold. Then, in a lower but sharper tone. And believe me, I won't let this matter disappear in a mere report. She gathered her belongings, gently stroked Shadow, and left the room. The silence she left behind weighed heavily, a mixture of shame, fear, and respect. Even the most hardened police officers knew that when a federal judge promised justice, it was not a threat, but a certainty. On the way back, Laura watched her sleeping son in the rearview mirror. You have nothing to fear, my angel. This time, I'm the one who's going to open their eyes. The next morning, Washington awoke to a heavy, gray sky. But it wasn't the clouds that weighed on the city, it was the anger of the people. In newspaper offices, in schools, on social media, a video was circulating around the country. Filmed by a passerby, it showed two police officers yelling at a woman and a blind child, trying to rip the leash off a guide dog. And the moment the woman revealed her card, her icy voice saying, "You have just humiliated a blind child, and a federal judge." Within hours, the clip went viral. Hashtags, televised debates, calls for resignation, everything ignited. Hashtag Justice for Noah and hashtag Respect Disability Rights were climbing to the top of the trends. The face of little Noah, clutching his dog, made the front page of every newspaper. Meanwhile, Laura Spencer watched the commotion from her office at the federal court. With the curtains drawn and a cold coffee in hand, she read the comments scrolling across the screen. Some called him heroine, others threat to the police. But she sought neither glory nor revenge. She wanted a lesson, one that would last. The phone rang. It was Captain Howard. Judge Spencer, the situation is getting out of hand. The media are harassing my officers. Families are receiving threats. Perhaps that's the price of ignorance, Captain. But I don't seek their destruction. I want their understanding. What do you propose? He asked nervously. Laura took a slow breath. A public hearing. I will testify. I want the police department to be trained, in front of witnesses, on the rights of disabled people. Not in the shadows. In front of the people. The captain remained silent for a few seconds before replying. If that's what it takes to calm the anger, then let's do it. A few hours later, in a quiet downtown apartment, Noah was watching television with his babysitter. Even though he couldn't see the screen, he listened attentively to the voices. Is Mom on TV? He asked softly. Yes, my love. Everyone is talking about her. Are they going to take Shadow? No, darling. Thanks to your mother, no one will ever do that again. Shadow rested his head on the child's lap, as if to confirm the young woman's words. Noah smiled. He had no idea how deeply his story had just moved an entire nation. 2 days later, Laura stood before the cameras on the steps of the federal courthouse. His face was calm, but his voice carried the power of a deep conviction. What happened is not simply a police error. It reflects a dangerous ignorance. People with disabilities don't need pity, they need respect. And that respect begins with the law. The journalists were taking notes, the flashes were popping. Then she added, "My son has no eyes, but he sees better than many of us. He sees with his heart. He deserves a world that looks at him differently." A solemn silence followed. Even the most cynical were moved. Meanwhile, at the police station, Officers Daniels and Miller watched the live broadcast from the break room. Miller sighed. "Do you realize, Daniels? We've sparked a national movement." Daniels, head bowed, barely murmured, "Yeah, and I'm ashamed." She was right. We've forgotten why we wear this uniform. That evening, calls from the public, letters of support, and donations for associations helping blind children poured in by the thousands. But at the heart of this media storm, Laura knew that a much bigger battle was brewing, the battle of the system, not just of two men. Because she had seen in their eyes, heard in their apologies, a disturbing truth. This was not an isolated error. It was a symptom. And she, a federal judge and mother of a blind child, fully intended to rewrite the law of respect. The morning of the hearing was approaching, and the skies seemed to have become overcast, reflecting the tensions that were simmering in the upper echelons. That day, Judge Laura Spencer was no longer just facing two ignorant police officers, but an entire system determined to protect its own mistakes. In the Washington mayor's conference room, the curtains were drawn, the voices were low but tense. Around the table were Mayor Robert Linton, Police Chief Howard, and the president of the police union, a massive man named Frank DeLuca. A heavy silence preceded the first words. "Gentlemen, this affair is blowing up in our faces," declared the mayor, his tone sharp. "A federal judge against our police? This is no longer an incident, it's a political disaster." DeLuca crossed his arms, visibly annoyed. "All this because of a dog and a blind child. We're talking about a media blunder, not a crime." Howard, for his part, remained calm but firm. "He's not just a kid, Frank. He's the son of a judge. And that woman is right. Our men don't know the disability law. If we continue to ignore it, we're the ones who will be judged." The mayor slammed his fist on the table. "What I want is for this whole thing to die down. No public hearing. No cameras. We'll issue a formal apology, and then we'll move on." But he didn't know that Laura Spencer had already planned much more than that. Meanwhile, in her office, Laura was preparing her files. On the table were several official documents, complaints from other disabled families, ignored for years. Each testimony told the same story: discrimination, refusal of guide dogs, humiliations. Voices silenced by bureaucracy. She closed her eyes for a moment. The image of Noah came back to him, hugging Shadow in the middle of the street, in tears. That memory had become his strength. She took a deep breath and dialed a number. "Agent Carter? This is Judge Spencer." "Yes, madam. We are ready for tomorrow. The hearing will take place in federal court and will be broadcast live." "Very good. And make sure that every police department in the country is connected to it. This lesson must not stop in Washington." That same evening, a man discreetly knocked on the door of his house. It was Captain Howard, visibly troubled. "Judge Spencer. I was supposed to come in person. The mayor wants to cancel the hearing. He says it will be bad for the city's image. Laura gave a cold smile. "The city's image? It's not its image that matters, Captain. It's the image Noah has of the world. And I refuse to let him grow up in a country where being different is punished." Howard lowered his eyes. "You're right. And you'll have my support tomorrow. No matter the consequences." The following morning, the courtroom was overflowing with journalists, students, families, and police officers. The cameras were rolling. The American flag flew in respectful silence. And when Laura Spencer entered, everyone stood up. She sat down behind the bench, adjusted her glasses, and spoke in a clear voice. Today, this is not a trial. This is a lesson. A lesson in law, humanity, and conscience. She turned towards the audience. In our society, too many people are judged not for their actions, but for their differences. My son, who is blind, was treated as a crime. This cannot continue. His speech resonated like a prayer, but also like a warning. Then she called Officer Daniels to the bar. The man was trembling. "Officer, do you understand why you are here?" "Yes, Your Honor." "For disrespect and ignoring the law." "No," she replied calmly. "You are here to understand what your ignorance costs a child." She handed him a strip of black fabric. "Put it over your eyes. And now, walk to the exit, without help." A murmur rippled through the room. Daniels hesitated, then obeyed. He had barely taken 2 steps when he tripped over a chair. Fear, confusion, loss of bearings. "Do you feel that, officer? That panic? It's my son's daily life. And that of thousands of others. That's why the law exists." There was total silence. Even the cameras seemed to have stopped. When the hearing ended, tears were streaming down faces. Laura stood up slowly, stroked Shadow's head, and added, "Justice does not see with the eyes, but with the heart." That day, the whole country understood what those words truly meant. A week had passed since the hearing. Across the country, the video of the policeman walking blindly, stumbling in the silence of a packed room, had shocked millions of viewers. The newspapers were headlining. "The judge who opened America's eyes. Noah and his guide dog, the lesson in humanity that changed the law." But behind the spotlights, in the peaceful Spencer home, life was slowly returning to normal. Noah laughed again. He petted Shadow, who wagged his tail, happy to have made his little master proud. Laura watched them from the kitchen, a hot coffee in her hand. She smiled. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. However, one last battle remained to be fought. That morning, Laura went to the Capitol, summoned to appear before the Federal Civil Rights Commission. There, surrounded by senators and representatives, she was going to defend a proposal. The Noah Act, a law aimed at strengthening penalties against any discrimination against disabled people and their assistance dogs. The hall was packed. Cameras were broadcasting the event live across the country. Laura slowly walked towards the desk, her file in her hand. Her face was calm, but her voice, full of emotion, vibrated with truth. "This project is not mine. It belongs to a little 6-year-old boy who has never seen the light, but who taught me to look differently. He taught me that justice is not just about punishing. It's about protecting. It's not about brandishing the law, it's about giving it a human face." She paused, her eyes slightly moist. "This guide dog is not an animal. It represents a child's freedom, a citizen's dignity. And no uniform, no authority, should be able to take that away from him." The room remained silent for a few seconds, before a thunderous applause erupted. Several senators, visibly moved, stood up. The Noah Act was unanimously adopted that same day. Outside the Capitol building, Noah was waiting for his mother, holding Shadow on a leash. "Mom. Is it true? They accepted your law?" She crouched down, smiled, and replied, "No, my love. Our law. It bears your name now." Noah placed his little hand on his mother's cheek. "So, will no one ever take in blind children's dogs again?" "Never again, my angel. You just made the world a little better." Shadow barked softly, as if in approval. Flashes popped around them, but Laura could see nothing but her son and her dog, a living symbol of a battle won without hatred, but with faith. A few days later, the judge received an unexpected letter. It came from Officer Daniels. Madam Judge, I will never find enough words to express how much I regret it. You opened my eyes, not just to the law, but to compassion. I asked to be assigned to the training program on the rights of persons with disabilities. Thank you for making me a better man. Respectfully, Officer Daniels. Laura folded the letter, her heart heavy with emotion. She looked out the window where Noah was playing with Shadow in the garden, laughing, free, luminous in his eternal night. You see, my son, she murmured. Even justice can learn to see. The wind blew gently between the trees, and in that breeze, one could almost hear the voice of destiny whispering. Light does not come from the eyes, but from the hearts of those who still believe in humanity.